Boxing Voice.
BoxingVoice.com here with trainer of Sergey Kovalev, John David Jackson. John, how difficult has this fight week been with Bernard playing a lot of head games, some aimed at you, some aimed at Sergey?
Not really. It hasn't been a problem at all for me. I think the fact that I got Bernard's head with my comments about the age and the way we're going to fight him is gotten to him because Bernard's never been. I've seen that rattle before. So I think that the comments we made have gotten to him more than he tried to get to us because, if he tried to get at me, I'm not fighting him. So I care less. Sergey's fighting him. He better concentrate more on Sergey than on me. And with Sergey, he doesn't really understand the English, and Bernard talks a long time. So he loses concentration real quick on Bernard's saying. So for us, it hasn't really been a problem at all.
Are you happy that Sergey doesn't understand English that well? Do you think it would have affected him worse if he would have?
Yeah, it might have, because Bernard has a way of getting in your head. And he's an older man, but he's wise for boxing, and he has a way of getting in your head. So I'm glad that Sergey doesn't understand the language at all. I mean, he's a strong-minded person, but anything boxing can happen, and Bernard has a way of using trickery to get inside your head.
Are you going to try to, make sure that Sergey doesn't go for the knockout? Because a lot of guys, when they try to take Hopkins out, it just backfires on them.
Yeah. If it comes, it comes. If he lands a shot that can really shake Bernard up early, fine. But no, our plan is we're looking for a long fight. And the reason why I say that is, if it ends early, we're happy with that. But Bernard tries to take him to deep water. Well, you got to reverse that a little bit. Okay, what happens when the old man has to really get in the water and it's deep for him? Will have enough in his tank to summon that energy to really fight, because Bernard has had a hard fight, a real grueling hard fight, about 15 years. And if you look at it, Marat, Cloud, and Shumanov, they were plotters. They were kind of robotic, and Bernard really wanted to. But when he fought someone with athleticism, Dawson, Kawasaki, and for the first 5 rounds of the first fight, Jean Pascal, they beat Bernard. They somehow hustled him, but youth served its purpose, and they beat him. Here's a kid that has the youth, the athleticism, and the punching power in both hands. So that's going to present a big problem for Bernard. So can Bernard, everybody's talking about what can Sergey do? Well, can Bernard, can he answer after 6 rounds of a grueling fight? Can his body muster up enough energy for the last 6?
Are you going to tell Sergey to put out a high punch output, try to make Bernard work at a higher rate and not let him set his tempo like he usually does in the early rounds of fights?
Not so much a high punch out rate, combinations when you punch, but use feints. Use that good jab. A fight with a good jab gives Bernard trouble every time. Dawson, Kawasaki, Jermaine Taylor. The jab hurts him. And this kid has a long, good jab, a strong, powerful jab. Use that jab, feint your way in, set Bernard up, set traps, make him fall from early. Make him feel uncomfortable with his game plan. If you set those traps early, if the fight goes longer goes, it makes it easier for you. Don't go for the head. If you see it, fine, but let's stay in the body, let's stay in his chest, hit him in his arms, his biceps, forearms, wherever you can hit him in the body. He's old, make him feel that age.
How do you prepare Sergey for Bernard's dirty tactics? Things like, hitting on the side of opposite the referee, rabbit punches, low blows, a lot of holding. How do you prepare Sergey for that? Because he's never really fought a fighter who does that well or that much.
Well, it's funny, in camp, Sergey does the same thing. He practiced that. So for him, he's going to retaliate. I see you have to be careful how you retaliate with Bernard, because you can't make it look like it's a flagrant foul that you're committing. But he said, Bernard hits me, I'm going to hit him right back. And, with this fight here, they're going to use instant replay after every round. So if something does happen, you can call it right then and there, and they do replay for you. So, Bernard does these tactics, but how's he going to react when someone else gives him back what he's giving to them? Will he start crying foul and want to fall down and say, oh, you're hurting me, or whatever? Because he has a way of doing that in certain fights when it's not going his way. The fans have to ask themselves, what's Bernard going to do when his kids start giving him back what he's dishing out? What's going to be the outcome for him? Is he going to just take it like a man and say, well, I'm doing the same to you, or he's going to start crying foul?
Do you think Sergey's prepared for Hopkins' dirty tactics? Do you think he's going to retaliate, or
I hope not, because it could lead to points being deducted, or this guy trying to call for it. You don't want to do it in the first 4 rounds. You don't want that to happen because there's no contest. And I guarantee Bernard feels his power. And if they have no contest, he's not going to fight him again. There will be no rematch.
You don't want this to end up like Chad Dawson won, was what I'm hinting at.
Yeah, because there will be no rematch. He has no reason to fight him again.
There is no rematch clause as well, right?
No, there is none. So You know, after round 4, now to the wraps off. Sergey said, listen, do what you feel you do best. You know, let's walk him down. Let's take our time. Let's beat him up. It's going to be a grueling fight. Let's make it a grueling fight. You know, because if you look at Bernard, the fights go the way he wants them, basically, with the guys that I said were robotic. It's a long, strategic, boring fight, but this kid's going to make him work. So when he makes him work, how prepared is Bernard really? You know, Bernard will tell you, well, I don't do some of the things I used to in boxing because my body can't take it, so he substitutes that for other things. But how much is that really going to help you in a grueling fight like this? If everybody's not prepared for the grueling fight that you know, I understand you got to be smart. He can't do it at the age he's at because they have nothing left in the ring. So that you do the things that you're doing now, that leave you kind of short down the stretch because you don't know. You haven't had that kind of fight. Is it left inside you to do it that way? You know, they may be dirty attacks and whatever attacks, but do you have enough left in the tank? That's the questions he has to answer, and they're going to definitely be put out to him because we're going to put that pressure on him.
Do you think during fight week, Sergey has given Hopkins too much respect? He said things like, you know, it's possible for him to lose. He said things like he understands that, you know, it's a tough fight for both guys. Guys like Chad Dawson gave Hopkins no respect. You know, Calzaghe didn't give him respect either. Those guys won the fights. Do you think Kovalev is kind of giving Hopkins too much respect and respecting him, you know, as a legend?
No, not really. You know, I think with Calzaghe, he did not give the respect. But during the fight, Dawson did give him respect. You watch the way he fought. He let Bernard do too many different things that Bernard wanted to do to make a long, boring fight. No, you know, Sergey says, you know, outside the ring, I'm going to give him that respect. He said, when that bell rings, it's a totally different game. I will not respect him. I have no choice. If I respect him, then I fall in that pocket of, now I'm giving too much respect, and I might lose a fight because I gave him that respect. This is a fight that Bernard is going to have to earn. Not just with his smarts, but he has to use muscle, and he has to be able to stand there and willing to trade with this kid, because if you don't, this kid's going to hit you all night wherever he wants to hit you. And he's going to aim for every place, and he's a tremendous body puncher.
Are you more concerned with Sergey taking control of the first half or the second half of the fight? I ask that because you usually see in the first couple of rounds Hopkins taking over and setting his slow tempo and doing what he wants to do, you know, having a low punch output, effective, you know, target rate, but low punch output.
No, because he knows he has to set the pace his way. And it can't be with Bernard walking around, one jab, one right hand, clinch hold. He knows he can't do that. So he knows it has to be combinations, and it has to be more than one. You can't do a combination here and jab, jab, jab combination. No. He has to make Bernard use those old legs. He has to make Bernard feel the play in the body. You know, he has to hit Bernard with one good. Once he starts hitting Bernard with good shots, Bernard will go into survival mode for a few rounds until he gets brave again. You know, so, you know, I tell him every round that we put in the bank, that's what you want, because now Bernard gets deeper into the hole. Now he has to train up his strategy, because he has to come out that hole. So he has to get brave and try to exchange with you. Not long exchange, because that's not Bernard's way, especially at this stage of his life. He's going to try to do it his way, but if you put him in that hole where he's behind that 8-ball, now he has to fight you. So most of his game plan goes out the window, and he has to fight you a different way. Can he do that at this stage of his career? He's not built for that. It's like this. I tell everybody, when you're about 10 years old or younger, you're brave. You know, you go in your mom's bathroom, you get that big towel, and you get that bobby pin, and you put it around your neck, and you go outside. And if you have a garage, it's a story high. You jump off of it. You get about 20 or 30, you say, man, I'm not jumping off that garage. Man, I might break an ankle or twist it. You get 40 or 50, you become even more concerned with things. So, you know, Bernard, he's smart and he's intelligent in what he does, but he's very cautious also. So is he really at the stage of his life to have a shootout with this young man at any stage of the fight? I don't see that happening. But I tell people he has power. Now when he sits down his punches like Shumanov, he sit down for 1 second and he cracked it, but he didn't sit down for the rest of the fight. But he proved he had the power. Is he willing to do that more than just one time to get this kid's respect? He might come out the first round and try to surprise him, but just get to be ready for that. So, you know, the first round might dictate how the fight might go to a degree. You know, maybe Bernard might come out and say, let me see if I can put some fear in this kid and go to war with him. But yeah, you stand a chance of getting clipped in those exchanges. So, you know, the first round, the first 2 rounds might depend on what Bernard's trying to do, but the kid knows he has to go out from the first bell and establish his self. He has to establish that he's the superior fighter at this stage of their careers and make Bernard fight his fight. And he puts the rounds in the bank as the rounds go by. It puts Bernard behind that 8-ball. And he has to either decide, well, I'm going to fight a little bit harder to maybe turn this around, or I might go to survival mode and see if I can get a decision at the end, keep it close.
In training and between, personal conversations, what does Sergey seem most concerned about with Bernard Hopkins?
The head, because that's a weapon for Bernard, and that's even today that was the biggest concern, his head. He said, man, that's his weapon. Well, guess what? You got to move you got to move your head. I tell most fighters, if you fight a guy that uses his head as a weapon, all you have to do, and this is not illegal, when you see him coming in, just drop your head. It's not like you're going here. You just drop it, and if he comes in, he hits you. It's not your fault. All you did was drop it. You didn't push it out. So I tell him, I said, all you do is drop it. Let him come on in. You're going to cut him, and don't worry about it. It's not your fault because it wasn't intentional. All you did was drop your head, protect yourself. That's what you got to do, and that'll stop all that to a degree.
But how concerned are you about the dirty tactics? He's used, a lot of them in his career, for better and for worse.
I'm not really worried about it because we sent 2 tapes. Someone, Larry Hazard, it's a 19-minute tape of Bernard, all the dirty tricks that he does, all of them. The way he falls down when the fight's late, he's trying to get out of the fight, whatever. All the dirty tactics, a 19-minute tape. So what Mr. Hazard did was he sent the same tape to the referee of this fight and made him watch it. So we're not worried about that. The only question is, will the referee, how long is he going to keep warning Bernard before he takes a point away, and that's going to make Bernard stop? Because if you watch most of Bernard's fight, they just warn him, and they warn him, and they warn him, but no one takes a point from him. And if you don't take the point, you can warn him all night long. He said, well, I'm going to keep doing it. I want to take a point. If you take a point from him, now he's in the hole. He can't keep doing that same thing unless he's looking for a way to get out. If the things are so rough, he's trying to find a way out. Then that might be his way out to get disqualified. But he's a true champion, so I don't see that happening with him. That's not the tactic I think he would use.
Now, we haven't seen Sergey face too much adversity. In the Agnew fight, he was cut and he was dealt with a guy who didn't want to lead. In sparring and in training, how does Sergey deal with adversity? Because at this stage in his career, we haven't really seen him get that DogsandVoice.com here with trainer Sergey Kovalev, John David Jackson. John David, we want to ask you a little bit about, how Sergey deals with adversity. He was cut in the Agnew fight. He was dropped in the Caparella fight, although some people say, the foot was stepped on. In training and seeing those fights, how does Sergey deal with, not being in complete control and dominant in the fight?
Well, for this particular fight here, we brought in Glenn Johnson, an old, tough veteran. And, Glenn, at this stage of his career, he's a come-forward guy. He doesn't take a backward step. And it was great because they had great sparring sessions. In the beginning, they went at war. But towards the end, Sergey got smart. He started boxing Glenn come in. So he adapted to the adversity real well. And then on the other half of that, we had a young kid named Steve Jafar, cruiserweight, come in, quick, very agile, good jab. And he was able to break him down, and this guy, went around the ring. So we used 2 different styles that were similar to Bernard's. Not exactly the same, but similar. And with Glenn Johnson, he's a true veteran and a hard fighter, and he gave Sergey what he needed. He didn't, but Sergey didn't fold. He dealt with it, and he dealt with the adversity. He came out of it the way you're supposed to. He figured Glenn out as the rounds went by, and he's trying to spar, and by the end, he was doing with Glenn what he wanted to do. Glenn was still coming, and it was still a tough fight, but he was able to dissect Glenn better. And they went to war a few times on the inside, and he needed that because with Bernard, there might be some inside fighting. If you can't inside fight with Bernard, he's going to take you to school.
Are you happy with how quickly this fight was put together? I mean, some people criticize the fact that Sergey went from fighting, a guy like Blake Caparella right to Hopkins. I mean, the situation laid itself out, but would you have preferred to have some kind of a evening buffer in between, some kind of a Tavoris Cloud or, guy who at one time had a title but wasn't, held as highly as Bernard Hopkins?
No, not really, because, at this stage of his career, he needs the more meaningful fights. You get up for those kind of fights, and he's fighting the Blake Caparellas and other fighters like that, Agnews. You can only get up so much, and he'd get up and he would train hard for him, like with Agnew. He had to set the pace, and he had to be the aggressor the whole fight. People say, well, he went 8 rounds, he was fatigued. No, he was far from fatigued. He was the aggressor, and he had to be the one that set the whole tempo of the fight, and he did that, and he still punched. With the knockdown with Caparella, that was a flash knockdown. It was more he stepped on his foot and he was off balance. And even he said, man, that was BS, but it is what they called a knockdown, so it's a knockdown. And he dealt with it. He didn't get mad. He just said okay, and he went back to doing what he does best, and that's dissecting his opponent. So he doesn't really get mad because once it's done, it's done. What can you do? Now you got to say, okay, let me get that point back, and that's what he did. And even though these guys aren't on Bernard's level, he still stayed calm and did what he had to do. So, with this guy here, it's a bigger dance, but it's to the same song. I got to do what I have to do to beat this guy down. And that's what the game plan is. You know, it's like everybody keeps saying, what if against Bernard? What do you do against Bernard? Well, guess what? You got to flip that around. What does Bernard do with this kid who's younger and stronger and it's coming at you and he wants what you have, your belts? How do you really deal with that if you can't keep him off you the way you think you can, or you want to offset him? Will you fight him to get him off you, or will you go into a shell and just try to neutralize it by using defense? But if you just go in there defensive and don't show real good offense, then you've lost the fight. You have to be able to, I got to get you off me, so I got to stand there and fight you eventually. Can he do that? Can he do it for more than 10 seconds, 20 seconds? Because with Murad, he would throw combinations, but guess what? Murad hit him with a lot of shots. You know, and so he's not the defensive wizard he once was. There's slippage. If you watch some of his fights, his legs, they're shaky, and that's why he walks around. He doesn't dance anymore because he really can't. So there's slippage. And what we have to do is capitalize on that and expose it and take him, you know, if he wants to go in deep waters, well, guess what? You might have better swim when you get there yourself. You know, so both fighters have to answer a lot of questions that night. And I just think Sergey has more going for him, more youth. He's smart enough. He's a very intelligent boxer. If you watch his fights, he doesn't just walk in throwing one-punch shots. He sets you up before he knocks you out with a body shot or a head shot. It's just not one punch, I'm trying to get you out of there. He's very smart and very strategic in his attack. So, you know, Bernard, it's a lot of ifs. Can he beat the old man? Can he do this? Can he do that? But what can Bernard really offset this kid and what he's bringing to the table against Bernard?
Now, last question. What does this win do for your career personally and for Sergey's?
For me, you know, it's just another feather in my cap for helping this kid, you know, beat the old man that most people say is hard to beat, and he is hard to beat, you know. So you beat a guy like Bernard Hopkins, it's a feather in his cap and my cap. You know, it just might bring other fighters to me, or, you know, I have a couple of good young fighters. So it just might bring other fighters to me because, you know, you see a lot of guys with a hot name, and it's bad in boxing. You got a hot name, everybody comes to you, but you might not be the right teacher for that guy. For Sergey, it's the sky's the limit. Bigger paydays, you know. Now you got 3 belts as opposed to Stevenson having 1 belt. So if you and Stevenson fight sometime in 2015, you can call the shots that you want. You couldn't call before. You know, he has to come out of Canada now and fight you here if he wants those 3 belts, because he only has 1, and he hasn't been that hot lately. So to prove himself, he's got to come out of his safe haven in Canada and fight you in America. And it's a big enough fight where they both can make some money. And there's a young kid, another Russian kid who lives in Canada. He's 6-0. He's someone that beat Sergey in the amateur. So sometime maybe next year, that might, you know, to me they're rushing the kid, but that might be a good fight for Sergey next year. And if Ward decides to move up, that's a very intriguing fight for the fans. You know, and you can't take anything away from Andre Ward. Very good fighter. He's cleaned his division out. It's kind of like time to move on up. Who else can you fight at 168? I mean, you're trying to get Chavez, and you're trying to get Golovkin. Those aren't fights for you. Come on up. You're a big guy. Fight the bigger guys.
Now, I know I said last question, but you brought up Stevenson. This is the last question. You know, what fight would you be more excited about if Sergey beats Hopkins? You know, an Andre Ward fight or an Adonis Stevenson fight? You know, just kind of compare those 3 fights. You know, tomorrow's fight, the Stevenson fight, and Andre Ward, and, you know, just break those 3 down a little bit.
For explosion and explosion for the fans, you're looking at Stevenson. The tougher opponent would definitely be Andre Ward. He's the more crafted fighter. He's stronger. He's younger. You know, he presents Sergey the same problem that Sergey presented to him. They're both young, and you know, if you sell him short, even though his style is not that great, because there's a lot of grabbing, holding, and clinching and stuff that he does, but it works for him well. And if you sell him short, then guess what? By the time 12 rounds finish, you lost to him his way. I think that's a fight that the fans would love to see. Because listen, Andre is good. You know, okay, you slice it. You may not like his style, but it works for him, and you have to give him kudos for what he's done. So of the 3, it depends on what you want. If you like action, it's him and Stevenson. You know, if it's intriguing, you like this fight tomorrow, and then you also like him and Ward, because that's an intriguing fight. Can you offset the things that Ward does, or can Ward offset the power that he brings to the table? That's a very intriguing fight down the road. If it can be materialized, that's a fight that the fans should see. Hopefully it can be made one day.
We appreciate your time. Good luck tomorrow night.
Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
The Boxing Voice.